Blog Talk Radio.
We welcome the night.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Horror Night Oasis, a radio show where we discuss all the latest movies and news from the world of horror. Joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host, Ian. Ian, are you there?
Hello.
Are you there?
Yeah, it was very quiet for a second. I didn't hear you.
Wow. Again, switchboard. So bringing on the problems, as usual. But we are here.
Yeah.
It is good to hear your voice and talk to you, as always, buddy. And we're here to continue on our Halloween Grab Bag Marathon. And what better way than the day after Friday the 13th than to go back to the 80s, where that series was big and booming. And with our film for tonight, that is technically a decent, a throwback to that horror genre of the 80s. It touches on a lot of tropes, and we're going to be talking about everything besides spoilers because it is still new. So we'll try to keep that to a minimum. You know, as we didn't say that with Morbid last week, but there's really not much to spoil there. But no non-spoiler, our best to our knowledge. And I will say up front, we were supposed to have a special indie spotlight, as mentioned at the end of last week's show. But things happen, and they're working on some technical issues on their end, and they were unable to provide us a way to view the film at the moment. So we will get to that film, that indie spotlight, before the end of the month. That is, I'm hoping that's a guarantee because that's what he told me. But again, you make do with the news, and that's why we decided to go something new for our Halloween grab bag with our review of Totally Killer tonight. It just came out, I believe, last week. And Totally Killer is, well, as mentioned, it's technically a throwback, and it has a bunch of different genres in there and what it's trying to do. The big main thing is it's technically sort of a Back to the Future type movie, where we're introduced to, well, we're not introduced yet. Let me get the backstory. So 35 years prior in this town of Vernon, there was a killer that murdered 3 teenagers, each on their 16th birthday, 2 days apart, and in 1987. And then they never caught the killer, and now, in present time, the killer strikes one of the victims that was in the initial friends that was supposed to die, and comes back. And then that sets into motion with our character of Jamie, and it's her mother. I mean, minor spoilers, you have to get into this part. It's her mother, and she has to, she unnecessarily sends herself back in time with one of her friends' science lab experiments for science fair, where she takes an old photo booth machine and gets transported back to 1987. And she is trying to stop the 3 killings of the teenagers in the high school from taking place, and also setting a new course of action and changing the future, basically, and the history of everything that's happened. That is the gist of the film. And we all, that's basically Jamie trying to save her mom and those around her from the killer in 1987 that's wearing sort of a combination of a Max Headroom mask, if like Beavis and Butthead had a love child, because it looks...
That's what I was thinking, too.
Yeah. Because it has the hair of Beavis and the face of Butthead, so it's an interesting mask, to say the least. But it's cool. I mean, it stands out a little bit. Like, oh, that's the Beavis and Butthead killer, But it's the Sweet 16 killer, and not the the name we're allotting him. But that's the gist of the movie. And again, we'll probably get into a few minor spoilers here and there. But for the film itself, I had fun with it. Was it amazing? No. But I had fun with it. They do a lot of 80s tropes and how the culture is different from 2023 to 1987. Everyone was like more open and free in a sense. There's a lot of woke sort of humor in there from culture, like wearing a shirt about boobs, or the name of the mascots was like the Red Devils, and then had to change that to like now in like 2023 it's the Devils instead of it's how it is like today with like the Reds or something, or one of the Indians, the Chiefs or something like that.
Yeah.
One of the baseball teams. Yeah, Redskins. That's it. I'm not big into sports. I'm sorry, but I know they had a thing like that where they had to change it. So there's a little bit of that in there. And then like how everything, like people are more open to things happening, where Jamie goes to the high school, like, oh, I'm a foreign exchange student. Oh, okay, go to class. Like, okay, So there's a lot of, like, we don't give a damn type humor in the film, and that's pretty much evident throughout the film. With Jamie trying to make herself fit in with everything. So, yeah, you have your basic Back to the Future type film. But what really stood out to me is this film is definitely more in tone with The Final Girls that came out, I think, 2015, like many years ago, where it's almost the exact same film, but instead of going to the past, they're going into the movie, where I think it was Vera Farmiga, one of the Farmiga girls, where she's going into the movie to save her mom from the killer in the film, and like all the people, in the movie are like tropes, in the horror movie genre, in the film that's being played. And this one is just 80s tropes being played up. And it's also a little bit like Hot Tub Time Machine, where like some of the characters are over exaggerated, where you're just, everyone wants to get high and have sex. And like there's a thing there because like she's trying to not get her mom and her dad in the 80s to, have sex yet, like too sexy, too fast, too horny, too fast, like, calm your emotions. And but also Jamie becomes friends with her best friend's mother, Lauren, and she's just like, yeah, I believe you. So, like, everything's so open and free. And like again, some of the jokes work, and some of the where it leads, eventually leads. It's not, again, it's pretty predictable. I'm not going to say that, I'll say it's not, because it's pretty obvious, honestly. Even towards the later half, when another turn happens, it's pretty obvious. But again, that's just from someone that's watched a lot of slasher movies. And I've been watching a lot of slasher movies here recently. Like, I watched Killer Book Club over the the last couple of days, and I couldn't find a more obvious film where, like, you're just giving the killer away, And it's like, I like Totally Killer more than Killer Book Club. That film was, don't get me started.
Yeah.
There's just, it wasn't terrible or anything. It's just like, there's a lot of issues with that film. But again, I liked the film and what it set out to do. It has like that Happy Death Day to You vibe to it as well, because that one dealt with time travel and a lot of stuff like that. But again, it's definitely more Back to the Future if mixed with the Final Girls. So you just take those two. They have a love child. You get the killer that looks like Beavis and Butthead had a love child. I mean, you have it's not a bad film. I mean, it is a little long in parts. It's an hour and 45, and I do think that could have been tightened up a little bit, but it does. It's just not like last week's film, where it's like just like it was like an hour and it felt like 6 hours. This one, it moved at a decent pace. It just felt like they could have got to a few parts faster, and it does take place on Halloween. So I mean, leading up to the big Halloween bash at the fair or wherever the Gravitron was at, in that Bucky, or not Bucky's, but Billy the Beaver, Billy's amusement park world. But yeah, I had fun with it. Again, it's nothing amazing. If you watch a lot of slasher films, it hits that void that you want. If you like the meta humor and the culture humor, it hits that pretty well. Like again, if you like the Hot Tub Time Machine movies or anything like they're going back in time, I mean, it hits that pretty well. I think it rides that line pretty good. The slasher aspect, it's kind of subpar, but it's more of her trying to save her mom and the friends thereof, and just the killing. Some of the CGI is a little bad, where you can just see it's like fake stabbing, and the input the stabbing wounds on a person. Especially that's evident when they go into the haunted house. Like, that's pretty bad. But again, it doesn't really take you out. I mean, it does its job well, and they have fun with it. And again, it's you're definitely going to get like a chuckle or a smirk out of it every so often with some of the humor with Jamie's character and like her reactions to how things are. But Ian, what's your thoughts? And then we'll go back and forth.
Honestly, like, I had a lot of fun with it. I was when it comes to these kind of movies, I had heard nothing about this film. No, I've not seen a single person talk about it. So when you said, "Hey, we're watching Totally Killer," I was like, "Okay." I was just expecting it to be like a Tubi thing. And when I looked it up and it was like, "Oh, it's free on Prime," I was like, "Oh, cool." It's like I never really get free movies on there, but whatever. And then I looked up, and when I watched it, I saw MGM. I was like, "Oh, this has a budget." But yeah, no, this is a movie. I had fun with it. I also got Happy Death Day vibes from this. That's why I told my wife, like, I'm getting very heavy Happy Death Day vibes. And I was like, I get the humor and like for modern day, like, and I knew where they were going to go when she goes back in time and she's in the car and all the windows are rolled up and she just opens it up and just cigarette smoke pours out of it. And I was like, okay, so we're doing like 80s, not like the, romanticized 80s version. But yeah, no, I was like, this is pretty funny. I thought it was funny. It was, it's nothing like groundbreaking, but it's definitely, I can see like a younger generation would enjoy this film, especially kids who are just getting into the horror genre. And this is like a really good introduction to that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it was fine. I mean, like the final person I expected, but this was one thing that kind of did take me by surprise, and I was, because they were trying to hint at other things throughout the whole film, and I was trying not to buy into all the red herrings, but I was like, I was actually pleasantly surprised with the outcome of it. But I also love how it was very self-aware about that, because there was a couple of Back to the Future jokes in the movie, and I thought that was funny, that you brought that up. So, but yeah,
and it's also
pretty. Oh, go on.
No, I was saying how they handled the woke aspect of it and or the cancel culture. I think they did a better aspect of doing it in this film, and the way instead of they handled it in Black Christmas with all that shit that went down with that
like
film.
thinking about that movie.
I know, but it has to be brought up because it needs to be brought up because it's the exact same thing, because he tried to do that in the Black Christmas, the last one, of course, which was terrible. Cancel culture, woke shit.
I think what made this movie different from that was that, one, Black Christmas was way too goddamn preachy. And it wasn't even preachy. It was just like trying way too hard. And this...
Yeah, they were shoving an agenda down your throat with that film.
Yeah. Yeah, but they flipped it on her as it was weird for her. Like, nobody acts like... Because I was expecting her to say this kind of stuff and then be like, oh, you're so right. No, they just looked at it like, why the hell are you talking like that? That's weird. They flipped it around.
It's water,
It's a joke. Yeah, and
it's
I mean,
a good fish out of water movie.
And it also like, even the stuff that she was complaining about wasn't too over the top either. It wasn't like she was like being preachy about the thing. She was just like, stranger danger.
Like, oh. Yeah, like, oh, that's not gonna work well, in the future. Like the one with like booby inspector shirt, like that doesn't ring true. You can't wear that in public anymore. Or
it's like,
it's also fun again, like harking back to like the hot tub time machine, where like you go back and you see how like people were, and like you see them then, and then like of course in 2023 where you're introduced to them, and then like everything goes back. Like that's kind of fun, where like the police chief or the sheriff, like she's like in the 80s she's this stoner party chick, and then when she's in 2023 she's this stoic, stuck up sheriff.
Yeah.
And I thought that there was something there I guess didn't get touched upon, is because apparently like she didn't like her dad in the past, but I guess that happens after the fact, because it didn't seem like, because she says, whatever you have against my dad, maybe that's just a word, I guess, that just a thing being said, I don't know what you have against my dad, but I thought that would come into play. It's superfluous, honestly, but it's just, and then the FBI agent, what he became, what he was to what he became in the future, and of course, like the jock and what he became in the future as well. It's always cool to see. Of course, we're talking about also Pam's mom, Pam, Jamie's mom, and how she was, in the Mean Girls Club, in her own pack. They're called the Mollies, and they dressed up like Molly Ringwald from all their different movies, and because she was in that, stuck up, Mean Girls Club in a sense, and there's a lot of humor in that too, where, like,
Mom.
So there's some good, again, I think they touched the humor pretty well, and like they balanced it out. Again, like that slasher aspect is, again, it's like very, like, as we mentioned before, a Happy Death Day, where it's just kind of there as a, just a footnote, and just push things forward for the main character and the plot trying to figure out things. And it's the same thing here, where it's there, but not a means is like the be-all, end-all, It's not, it's there as, in a sense, a MacGuffin, it's the MacGuffin to keep things moving forward.
Exactly,
but I think they do well, because it's like her trying to, it's a family picture in a sense, family, like trying to, you love your mom, and she loves her dad, and just seeing how they are in the 80s, and how they were, because again, like I said, the mom was a Mean Girls Club, and the dad was technically a jock in the airhead in a sense, meathead, that's the word I'm talking about, and how things like turned out there, and some of the and I like some of the jokes too, with like the one that became a rock star, and like how like the posters changed and stuff like that. So there's like some interesting little like quips there that makes you a little chuckle here and there. But like I said, the film is perfectly fine if you like that. Like I said, The Final Girls, it's right along there, perfect movie watching double feature with The Final Girls because it's the same film technically. So again, I had fun with it. Again, like I said, just a few little things where it could have been cleaned up, but I didn't walk away hating it. I was like, yeah, it's a fine, that was a fine little slasher movie. It wasn't, it's the same, like film takeaway that I got when I watched the Happy Death Day films. Like, yeah, they were fine. They had fun. It's it's just like right there with like the second one. Like, yeah, it was fine. I mean, I didn't hate it or anything. I mean, you could have done things a little differently, but hey, I didn't walk out hating it. Like, yeah, it's a fun, all right sequel,
Yeah.
But, this one is like definitely, if you lived the 80s and, it's definitely going to harken back to that type, if you lived through it as a child, teenager, whatever, it's going to hit on those heartstrings more than, again, being born on the late end of the 80s and living through the 90s like myself. But, you just, you look back there and you kind of know, especially if you appreciate the 80s. It hits everything right, but it's fun. It's a decent watch. I mean, you're not going to go out there expecting, a great film or anything, but for what they managed to accomplish with what the film they wanted to do, I think they had fun with it. So, yeah, if you like, again, I'm repeating myself, like the Happy Death Days, Back to the Future, of course, Final Girls, Hot Tub Time Machine humor. I mean, it's all just it's in that conglomeration, in that pot, just stirring with all the. If you like those type of films, you're going to like this. You're going to have fun with it. And I mean, again, like I said, if you watch a lot of slasher movies, I mean, it's fairly obvious, but you have fun with it. Like Ian said, like sometimes the red herrings do work, and you're like, you're trying to like, okay. It's like that meme, like the guy with the coffee and this thing that says "change my mind." Like you're just sitting there, like, "Come on, movie, change my mind." Please don't be the killer I'm thinking it is. And
and it was.
Sometimes,
But yeah,
it wasn't. I think I don't really know what else to say. I think we discussed everything. I mean, we can't really get into spoilers, and I don't want to get into spoilers since it's new. But like I said, it's a decent watch. Ian, any final thoughts?
I mean, honestly, I think I could watch this movie again, and there's I think there is some rewatch value to it. Personally, I definitely think that if you're new to horror and you're wanting to sink into some slasher movies, this is definitely a good way to go. It's fun. It's entertaining. It utilizes almost every scene perfectly. There's nothing felt like it really didn't belong, except for a couple of minor scenes here and there. But if they're so mild that we're not tearing it apart, then it's not it's not a major deal breaker like the last movie.
Yeah.
Where it just dragged on. And
no, it's definitely
nothing.
more character driven, where you're just getting more dialogue from again, all the characters littered throughout. So it's not where it's unnecessary. It's superfluous. It's superfluous to the film. When you break it down, but just it gives you more, character arcs for the character, that Jamie runs into, and backstories and history, and then how they all kind of tie in at the, at the very end of the film, with what happens. So it's interesting, again, how they wove everything together. And again, like I said, a few things here and there, we could nitpick on, but like I said, it's nothing major. I mean, I didn't, like I said, it's not one of those where I'm just like, oh my God, we have issues here we need to discuss. But this one, it's a perfectly fine slasher movie. I mean, I've seen a lot of them. It's definitely, one that's definitely better than most. I mean, like I said, Killer Book Club was. Don't waste your time with that film, because it's just, honestly, if you couldn't pick out the killer. I mean, like, really, are you even trying film? And that one tries to insert a twist at the end of it too. Like, really? I mean, even that's even that's easy to figure out. But nonetheless, but yeah, I had fun with it, and plus all the music. It kind of there's one thing the music's introduced kind of reminded me of the scene in Stitches where like the party's going down in the house, and like I Just Died in Your Arms is playing, and like he's killing the person in the closet or the pantry, and I Just Died in Your Arms, and he literally kills him. I mean, it's a good scene. That's the one scene that stands out in Stitches, the Killer Clown movie. But yeah, I think the music being used, let the music play by Shannon when the second friend is getting attacked. So I was like, again, I liked all the music playing in the film.
Yeah, I was digging the music.
Yeah.
I was very pleasantly surprised with that too, because it just felt like music was it kind of felt like almost a focus for the scene. And sometimes they do that, sometimes they overutilize the music, and I felt like this was a really good example of like how to use music for a scene to enhance it. It didn't, because there's some movies we've watched that I felt like the music choice actually worked against the scene, and it just made it unbearable. And I hate when that happens.
Oh yeah, but like you said, it has fun. I mean, it covers a lot of ground, and it's your slasher, your comedy. I mean, they mesh well together. And also trying to tie in the times with the culture of 2023 and going back to 1987. Again, the kills aren't really that great. It's just stabbing someone 16 times, so it's kind of second nature in a slasher movie, I know. But it's not there, as mentioned. It's more about Jamie and family dynamic and all that ground, and it's just a means to get to the end. And again, I think it manages everything well. And again, like some of the humor is funny, like with I hit the killer with a piece of wood, and here's some of its blood. Put this in the DNA thing on the World Wide Web, like DNA, and he just throws it to the ground. So it's like, again, even back then, like cops were, like doofuses. It's just kind of funny. But yeah, like there's a lot of jokes like that, and again, teacher jokes and stuff like that. So it has fun if you live through that times, as mentioned. But yeah, I think it's worth checking out. And it's one of the better slashers here lately that I've watched to have fun with. And like I said, if you like The Final Girls, it's very, again, good double feature. I mean, because it's the exact same film, except for instead of going back to the 80s, you're going into a movie. So it's the same thing. And they still both technically have that 80s tropes into it. But Ian, you got anything before we call tonight?
In terms of, since this is our grab bag, in terms of candy, I would have to say that this was like a generic candy, but one that's still like not bad. Like, it's actually pretty good.
I think this is a Three Musketeers. I think it's a Three Musketeers because it has the chocolate covering, but it has that nougat, and the nougat's just like, it's sweet enough and it hits the right spot, and you're happy and you're sufficient for a while. Where it's like, it's not bad.
You only want them for every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get a Three Musketeers all the time. I mean, it doesn't have any bumps. It's just straight chocolate bar. With it's not like a Hershey's or anything. It's just like, it has that filling that hits that sweet spot, and it knows what it is, and there's nothing getting in the way of it. It's just nougat.
Next movie's probably going to be trash.
Yeah. But
that's how it goes.
Well, yeah, we always have to do our little rankings with the Halloween candy. But yeah, Ian, it's always great talking with you, and especially during these marathons. And I hope everyone listening had an enjoyable Friday the 13th. Hopefully those that partake in watching a Friday the 13th movie got to partake in that.
I totally forgot that.
We watched this instead, and it still fits because, again, it's a slasher film, so whatever. But we had fun, and hopefully everyone got to have fun with their day if they partook in the holiday. And we will continue on our Halloween grab bag with whatever good Lord knows and whatever next might show up in our hands that we have to chew on for a while and spit back out. But hopefully, I mean, this time we swallowed it. We didn't hate the taste. So, Three Musketeers. But we will see you next time as we continue on the Halloween Grab Bag Marathon. So thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Horror Night Oasis.
Good night.